Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. We've bellied up to the bar today. We're ready to go. We have brought with us a mystic of the man's mind, a wanderer for women to make men wonder why. Let's see what else I can come up with.
I don't know. I'm already having a good time, though.
Look at this. A gentleman's gent who will gently guide you through your gilded days. I like that one. That's a lot of G's. I made that all happen. We bellied up to the bar today on this October 19th. And Doc, I'm going to apologize. We got my partner Dibs is back today, but we have with us Dr. Avrum. See, I told Doc I was going to butcher.
That's my uncle said when I was born. It's like a drink of rum.
Oh, look at that. Of rum.
Listen, there you go. That's right. There you go. That's something you can relate to.
You like that segue? You like that?
I like that. Look, we'll just have a little of rum, and then we'll just sit down and we'll have a good time. It'll be perfect. So, but we have the good doctor with us. Doc, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast.
Good to be here.
Where's my? See, and I'm already messing things up for you, Doc. Let me fix myself here. I'm gonna fix myself, and we'll do this one more time.
You get a new knee part, and you can't figure out your soundboard.
Look. I was supposed to give you cheers and everything. I did, and Dibs is right. I got my ace. For those of you that follow me in all my parts of life, is I had my ACL replaced on last Thursday.
Ouch.
Yeah, though, everybody, and we'll talk about doctors for a moment. Everybody talks about the VA, this, that, and the other. I'm going to tell you, it's no different than any other hospital in any other city. Your city's going to have great and amazing hospitals in one part of it. And then there's going to be other hospitals that suck. And we happen to luck out here in the Albany area. The doctor that did my ACL surgery has been doing it for 30 years.
Great.
So it's like, yeah, what do you like? There was no place for me to complain and be like, oh, how horrible could this guy be? He's been doing it for 30 years. If he can't figure it out by now, I'm definitely not the person he's going to all of a sudden magically get it right with. So, Doc, before we get going too far into this, and folks, for those of you that are listening, we're talking about, and Doc, correct me if I say it wrong, but we're talking about how men are afraid of women.
No, you got it. You got it.
It's pretty much as simple as that. And definitely, I have a lot of questions.
Good.
It's a unique thing. Like, it's a lot of it. I feel like is cultural. It's like culture tells us this is the way we're supposed to be. So we'll get into all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But before we get too far, and look, I know my Raven sticker's over there, and I'm ready to fire everyone on the coaching staff right now.
Let's go Giants.
Oh, Giants can. Oh, God.
I'm a Giants fan. Sorry.
Oh, God. And just like that, folks, the show's over.
Perfect.
God, it was so horrible. But well, somebody said to me, I can't believe the Giants are 5-1. I'm like, they're just playing consistent, well-coached football. There's two people on the entire team that are worth, greatness, and everybody else is just playing their role, which is all you ever really want. And it's amazing. But getting into this real quick, as you can see, the big sticker board over my right shoulder, that's sticker in a cause, folks. If you've got something you're supporting, maybe you're a doctor and you've got some books and you want to get them out there. You've got your own podcast, band, liquor. I don't care what it is. Reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, even our email address. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. And that's at gmail.com for our email address. Send me a message. Let me know what you got. I'll give you the address where to send the sticker. You mail me out a sticker, and we'll read all about it right here on the air. You can ask Dibs. He sent me stickers before I let him be my co-host, and we read about them on the air. So make sure you send those out to us. And maybe your media is feeling scared of other media, and your media needs to understand that it's good enough, it's nice enough, and gosh darn it, people like it. you might want to reach out to Media by Dibs. That's my partner here to my right, Media by Dibs. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram at Media by Dibs, DIBS, or you can go ahead and reach out to him on LinkedIn at Andrew Dibble, Dibble, no S. I always want to put an S at the end of his name, but Dibble, and you can reach out to him there. And my wife won't come on the camera, but she just brought me water. See, I'm not scared of her. Only if she raises a hand at me. That's normally when it is. Now she's sneaking over on camera.
Hey there.
See, she's the scary one. But and those of you that are just joining us and just finding us, if you're finding us through the Good Doctor's post, which I appreciate your email that went out there, Doc. Oh, look at that, David Cannon, you're in Saugerties. We were just in Saugerties for the Garlic Festival. Love your Garlic Festival, but I will tell you got to come up this way to the Bennington one, Dave. If you haven't done the Bennington Garlic Festival, it's just about as good as Saugerties. Just Saugerties is the second largest in the world behind the one in California. It's massive. But the food, I'll give Saugerties this. The food at Saugerties is pretty impressive. Like there's a fat kid that lives in my soul that loves it.
See, I'm sad I never got to go I never went to any of that stuff when I lived out there.
Well, Doc, you're up in Maine, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Now, I mean, there's some pretty good. You got some pretty good spots up there. Portland, Maine.
Oh yeah, big food town.
Like huge, monstrous. That's actually considered as one of the best food cities in America.
Yeah, it is.
And
I'm
it's
a little ways away from Portland. I live in an island in Penobscot Bay.
Now, where's that at?
About almost 2 hours north of Portland is Rockland, and then you take a ferry from Rockland out to Vinyl Haven, which is where I live.
That's called Canada, Doc.
Not quite. It's still ways north of Canada.
Close to it.
2 hours north of Maine is called Canada.
No, you got a ways to go.
Oh, you're just Southern Canada, Sean. I don't know what you're talking. I'm super Southern Canada. I have to cross the bridge, and I'm in Canada.
Well, I was about to say, isn't Canada south of where you're at?
Who?
Because in Michigan's the only place where you can get into Canada by going south.
Yeah.
So I thought you were up there, but yeah, Dave, I'll tell you, brother, it is definitely good eating out there in Saugerties. So, Doc, all the house cleaning is done. All the prep work is over with.
Yep.
I want to say it again. Thank you for coming out. I've been looking forward to talking to you.
Me too.
So
I'll tell you where we could jump in.
Yes, please.
The joke you just made to your wife.
Let's go with it. Go from there.
Because people only joke like that about things they're scared of.
I would admit to being scared of my wife.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My experience with men is it goes almost the same exact way every single time. So when you first hear the idea that men are scared of women, it's just like a weird counterintuitive. So it goes very differently with men and women. With men, the first response is they bow up immediately. That I'm not scared of her. And then within 60 seconds, you can just see it come over like a look of like, that would explain a lot.
But let's define that fear.
Sure.
Because I think if I, Dibs and I were both in the Marine Corps. So if you told me I was scared, I appreciate it. If you told us we were scared, I think physically scared. Are we talking physical?
No,
or are we talking
we're not talking physically scared. We are talking emotionally scared. And I can give you a very simple, everyday example that most guys can relate to. You're at work and your buddies come over and say, hey, we're going to go out to the bar after work and watch Giants game. You want to come with us? And for most guys, what's the first thought that comes to their mind?
I got to go ask my wife.
Exactly. Now, what's interesting about that, now what's sad about that is that the first thought that comes to your mind is whether or not your wife's going to be mad at you before you even wonder whether or not you'd like to go out with your friends. That's sad. Okay. The first thought should be whether or not you want to do it, not whether or not your mommy is okay with it. The second thing that's interesting about that is that from the woman's point of view, most women are very happy for you to go out with your friends. In fact, they may have been pestering you. Why don't you go out and make some friends and quit pestering me all the time? So it's an imagined fear. It's not coming from any reality in the relationship. It comes from the place that I'm talking about and the place I'm writing about. And it's just you immediately went there, Tibbs. You got it immediately. And most guys do. And that's coming from us, not them.
But okay. But what is that fear though? Is it being in past, because I think about something like that and I would say, well, it probably comes from past relationships where you thought it was okay and you were younger and you wanted to do all those things and experience all that. And like a beat dog, like that whole Pavlovian theory,
Right.
you beat them enough when we think it's time to go do that and we want to go do those things, we can't.
You're right. It immediately has that negative connotation that if I do this, I'm going to get in trouble.
You're right. When you say past relationships, only you're about 30 years ahead. So
you're talking like motherly.
You got it.
Yep.
There's a wonderful social psych experiment. I wish we had the technology. I would show you the video. Yeah, I'm sure there's a way to do it. I don't know how to do it. But if you listeners Google the still face experiment, STILL, it's a famous social psych experiment. They took moms and their babies, little babies, and they did a split screen so you can see the mom's face like I'm seeing you and Tibbs next to each other now. And you can see that there is a conversation between the two. It's obviously not verbal because they're babies, but the mom makes a face and the baby responds. And so that's reinforcing to the mom. Oh, the baby likes that face. So the mom makes more of it. Or the baby does a little cute thing and the mom smiles. So that they're learning about each other without words. And they are, most importantly, they're validating and reinforcing each other. Because if you try something, if I tell a joke and you laugh, then that validates me. You like me. I'm okay with you. So in the experiment, they asked the moms to turn away and then turn back with a still face, not an angry face, not a critical face, just to not respond to the baby. And within minutes, all of the babies were crying, screaming. Some of them actually lost control of their bodies and their bowels, right? That's how upsetting it is to babies. Not when their moms are angry at them, but just when their moms are not reciprocating with them. Now, some interesting to bring that to us here today. First of all, the boy babies got more physiologically distressed than the girl babies, and their distress lasted longer. They got more upset, and it took them longer to recover. And then you come to grown-ups, and we see an interesting fact. In conflict between men and women in heterosexual relationships, guess who gets more upset and guess who stays upset longer?
Well, I'm going to say it's men based on this.
You got it. Right.
Conversation.
Good assumption.
It's the same thing. So that the reason that these fears exist is that we as men, if we're straight and we're marrying a woman, it recreates those early dynamics with our mother. So if you're a gay man or you're a woman, you're not marrying your mother. But if you're a straight guy, you end up with the same feelings you had. So guys are notorious. I'll give you all more everyday examples. Guys are notorious for, first of all, avoiding conflict at all costs in relationships. And second of all, trying to keep the emotional tone as low as possible, as controlled and moderated as possible. And it's the same. Why are they avoiding conflict? Because conflict is threatening. If she might leave me. She might get so mad at me, she might leave me. So I have to keep things calm. And,
I feel like
guys don't know that.
I feel like that's the...
I'm going to go with Dave for a second, though. Hold on a second. Dave says that sounds like an awful experiment. Child abuse, JK.
Well, yeah, you absolutely could not do that experiment today.
No.
They wouldn't let you do it today. But think about it. We're saying it's awful. All the mom did was not respond for a moment. And it was devastating to the kids. She wasn't mean.
But I mean, so think about it from like our point of view. Like if you do get into an argument with a spouse, with a significant other, whatever, one of the worst one of the things that really is just nothing.
That's
I mean,
right.
it's the typical I'm fine, straight face. And you're like, nope, like absolutely not, because you need that affirmation, like that acknowledgement.
There was a video that went viral. I think, trying to remember, it was like Good Housekeeping magazine or some odd person put this video out called the Dog House. Did you ever see this video?
No.
So a guy, it's either their anniversary or her birthday, and he's all excited. He got her a gift, and he brings it in, and it's a vacuum cleaner. His wife walks him outside to the doghouse, the literal doghouse, and puts him inside, and he goes down in a chute where he's goes down into like purgatory with all the other men who gave their wife, and they're down there folding laundry, and they've all been sent there for their insensitivity, and they have to stay until they figure out what they did wrong. And millions of people watch this video.
I'm with Cujo. I'm fine equals nuclear level Cold War tone. Absolutely. And you know what, though? You bring up such a great point. I can't tell you how many times, you're in an argument with your spouse, whatever's going on. And as a man, I want to finish the conversation. I start things, I finish it. Let's finish the conversation. And you get silent, leave me alone. I don't want to talk. And that is just brutal.
Oh, it's a dagger. I would rather you scream at me at that point.
Yes.
Like,
why is
why
is that so hard for men? Because of what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's the only thing I can come up with.
Men don't admit to themselves how much we need women. And so when women withdraw their affection, their approval, we're a mess, but we don't understand why.
Well, I mean, it's like you look at the ultimate thing, even when going back to the whole mom conversation and going, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed, is such a bigger dagger to the heart that it's just
With kids, we say, if mom ain't happy, nobody's happy. And then when we get to be grown-ups, we say, happy wife, happy life.
So this becomes the question in all this then. As we're getting into this, and folks, if you're just joining us, the good doctor has a website. Let me run that banner. I almost forgot to run it for you there, Doc. And Avrum Weiss, PhD.com. I butcher names. Everybody knows it. It's nothing personal. Right. I am horrible with names. Make sure you're going on, you're checking out what he's got going on. His books are over there. Studies he's been involved in are over there. And we're discussing why men are scared of women, why we have this. But as I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about where a lot of this comes from, why isn't it the same thing with daughters and fathers?
Because almost all of us were raised by women, not men. Because our first powerful emotional attachment was with a woman. Whether you're a boy or a girl, it's changing finally, kind of a little bit, and dads are getting more involved. Thank God. I'm a little older than you guys. When I had my kids, there was a joke when I had my kids in the mid 80s. And that was, what do you call a dad on a Saturday? If you see a dad in the park on a Saturday with his kids, what do you call that?
Single.
Divorced.
Yeah.
Right. Because the idea that a dad in an intact family was just unheard of. You never saw dads. I remember the first time I saw a changing table in a McDonald's men's room. It was a huge, because I'd been changing my kids' diapers on dirty bathroom sinks.
Yep.
And I remember the first time McDonald's, but it was a huge watershed moment. So back to your question, girls don't have the same intensity of relationship with their dad because they don't rely on their dads the way boys rely, and boys and girls rely on their moms. Dads in most families are kind of the role player, the secondary, the ancillary. So there's not that you might be close to your dad, but you don't need your dad the way you need your mom. There's nothing biological about that, and there's no reason it can't change, but that is the way it is in our culture.
It's more of a cultural thing.
Absolutely. Learned. Absolutely.
So do you see that difference? I mean, obviously in a lot of cultures it is, if you look at African tribes and stuff, a lot of times it is the women raising that. But is there a culture that comes to mind that does have that dynamic flip-flopped to where they don't see it as much?
Well, if I were in a really optimistic mood, I would say our culture is getting there. And I'll tell you my very anecdotal evidence is my son has twin 3-year-olds. And when I visit him, and there's a group of young parents together and their kids, the thing that warms my heart more than anything else is when a kid starts crying or needing attention, every man in the room gets up and the women sit there and keep talking and drinking their Chablis while the men get up and go take care of the kids. And that is the most hopeful thing I have seen. And what I always tell the guys, guys like, for example, the issue about getting up in the middle of the night, guys bitch and moan, I don't want to get up, I have to go to work. And I'm like, you are missing the biggest opportunity of your life, because the middle of the night is the only time you get unsupervised time with your children.
We lost the dibs. Oh my goodness.
And we did. Yeah.
Oh, well, he'll if he can get back on. He's in Michigan with his internet is ran by squirrels. So it happens.
Okay.
So and Cujo just jumped in with, this is like 2 generations ago, hearing that term, wait till your dad gets home, and instilling the fear that your father was going to be this massive disciplinarian.
Right.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate though, with this, which is, are we losing though? And I'll say it for men and women, that, and everybody likes this term toxic masculinity, which I don't really quite fully understand it, because at the same time, someone will say toxic masculinity, there's an expectation that on a date, a man is going to pay for that.
Right.
But if you don't pay for it, somehow you're lesser of a person.
Right.
If you told a woman, well, no, you can pay for that, all these different things, you're lesser. If somebody came up and, hit on your girlfriend while you're out and you didn't just instantaneously go to throwing hands, all of a sudden you're less of a man. You didn't defend her honor.
It's very confusing. So
where is that line at?
Let me speak to the term toxic masculinity, because you're absolutely right. There's actually a wonderful debate I'm in the middle of now with colleagues. I'm reading the line here. That's wonderful. It's wonderful you feel that way.
Says, or not Dibs, but Cujo says he loves to hear when his daughter calls out daddy instead of mom.
There's no better feeling in the world.
Absolutely. I agree with him 100%.
So in the field, we're actually moving away from the term toxic masculinity because it has such negative connotations. And we're moving more to terms like traditional masculinity. And so what that is talking about is women or girls are raised, when a girl is born, she identifies as a girl and doesn't feel insecure about that at all. She's a girl because she was born a girl, and she doesn't feel like she has to prove it or defend her. I think it's very different for men.
100%.
Boys are taught that, first of all, masculinity, that there isn't a thing called masculinity. Mostly what masculinity means is not feminine.
Okay.
And so then boys feel like they have to always be on guard to not appear to be feminine in any way, shape, or form, because they will be thought of as less masculine. Right. That's what they're talking about, traditional. So there's a wonderful story about a little boy in kindergarten or first grade, and the teacher says at the end of the year, everybody gets to lead the class in the song that we learned this year that you like the best. Great. Little boy gets up in front of the class and he starts singing a lullaby. At which point all the other boys in the class start making faces and humiliating him, making fun of him. So he doesn't get very far into the song before he sees his friends making fun of him. He says, I was just kidding. I was just teasing. I don't like that song. And he starts singing the Marine Corps anthem.
Aha. I like the kid already.
Right.
That's a lullaby.
But even at 6 years old, he understood the disapproval that would come to him if he said he liked a song that the other boys judged to be feminine. And so he lied and put on a false front to say what he liked was what he thought they would like.
And again, Cujo, hence 20 years ago, one of the worst things you could say to another guy was they were gay. Totally wrong, shameful. I didn't know better back then. And we all used it. Heck, there was a time when just using the term gay didn't actually mean homosexual.
Right.
You would just look at something and be like, instead of calling something stupid, it was
Right.
like, dude, that's gay. Like, what do you do? That thing, you wear those, that's gay. And it was used just as a term.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know when that story, when that's supposed to be taking place, but I almost feel like
recently.
Okay. Because I almost feel like today, a boy who acts too much in that vein of like, hey, I like baseball, I like football, I like these, I want to go hunting, I like these more masculine things. There's an entire group of people that will shame them for that on the other side of it, because to say, well, how dare you? You're too much this way.
I think that's more what we'd like to think happens. I don't think it is what happens. So the story I told you is from a book called When Boys Become Boys. And it's a woman who a researcher. She's an interesting woman, but she's a psychologist and a congresswoman from California.
Oh, wow.
Judy Chu is her name.
Okay.
And not only did she study, she basically lived in that classroom for 2 years and studied these kids very closely, but it was a Quaker school.
Oh,
and
wow.
So the parents were all about not gender stereotyping their kids. Like their kids weren't allowed to play with guns in the class. But as soon as the teacher turned her back, the boys started making guns out of the Legos.
They're going to do that.
Right. So so their parents didn't want them to do it and the school didn't want them to do it, but their culture shapes them to do it.
It's just such an interesting way of looking, because one of the other things I read through some of your articles is you talk about how men do better in relationships and women do worse. What do you like? I guess, I think about partnerships, and in any partnership, one can do better than the other, but you're saying that statistically the studies show that this is how it works.
Yes.
What is the reasoning behind some of that?
Well, before I get to the reason, what's interesting about that is that the stereotype is that marriage works better for women than men. So we say things like, why would, mom will tell her daughter, don't have sex with a guy because, if he can get the milk for free, he won't buy the cow. And so we have all this stuff. The stereotypes are that women pursue men and try to get them to marry because marriage is good for women, and that men try to stay single as long as possible because marriage is going to they'll be less happy. But the opposite is true.
But what? So
why?
I think, but this is my thoughts on the male part of it. Is we're always looking to be protectors, providers.
Yes.
We want to be that person.
That's what we are taught to be.
And we benefit from a relationship in that where we're absent doing those things to provide for that and looked at in that.
Yeah, I think men do better in marriage.
Yes.
Because I'm going to start the answer a little further back.
Yes.
So boys and girls originally start out playing together. And then at some age, the girls start playing with the girls and the boys start playing with the boys. What do the boys play? The boys play games to help them learn how to run the world. They play games, competition and aggression. So I remember we played football, we played cops and robbers, we played basketball, we played wiffle ball, all games that taught us how to compete with other guys.
Absolutely. 100%.
What were girls playing?
Games to teach them how to take care of a household.
How take care of a household and learn about relationships. They play doctor, they play house, they play school. They're playing games and learning about relationships. So then years go by and we get back together, and who knows more about relationships? It's not even close. The girls know a lot more about relationships. And so the reason men do better in relationships in marriages is that men are not so good at relationships by and large. No. And we need women. If we're going to have an intimate relationship, it's more likely to be with a woman. If we're going to learn about closeness, it's probably going, whereas women, and also because most men don't have any close friends. So women have lots of close friends and don't rely entirely on their husband for intimacy. And they already know about how to be close with other people. So the classic story is the guy who gets divorced and he thinks, well, I'm rid of her, now I'm going to all the stuff I want in my life. And then he looks around and he's alone because all his friends are the husbands of his wife's friends. And when they go away, he finds out he actually doesn't have any friends. I wrote an article about men and loneliness that has almost 1 million views on Psychology Today.
Where could we find it? It's on
psychologytoday.com. You put in my name on psychologytoday.com, you'll find the article. But I mean, think about, it touched a nerve. 1 million people read that article.
Absolutely. I'm just even hearing it.
Yeah.
I think about that, and I've known folks like that, and
yeah.
I think, I do feel like I'm lucky that the people that I have in my life, male friends wise, but I have my fraternity. I have the Marine Corps.
That's right.
I built those, but I think a lot of men outside of that, if you don't have that fraternity.
Well, that's a really good point. And I think that is a lot of what appeals to people about the military, because it's one of the few places where men forge those kind of close, lifelong relationships is the military. And I think that's part of what the appeal is.
Oh, I got friends that could pick up the phone, and I know Dibs does too, that could pick up the phone right now and either ask for money or to bury a body, and I got to go.
And you're one of them. I mean, it comes down to that.
Supposed to know about burying the body,
right?
But no, absolutely.
But with most men, that's not true. The question I ask of men often is, it's a two-part question, because I'll say, "Do you have friends?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, I got friends." And then it's the follow-up, because I'll say, "Well, do you have friends that you talk with about the things you talk with me about?" "Oh, hell no."
Now that's different.
Yeah,
I've probably. What do you think, Dibs? Do you have anybody, like, I know I've maybe got one to two that I probably could really, but even then it would be tough to get into that conversation.
I think so. Guy friends, I've got two. Yep, I've got two, and both of them I was in the military with.
I think two puts you both way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, but
most men have no one in their lives they talk to but their wives. No.
See, but I think there's a bond. So the one that I talk to is, my kids call him uncle. We deployed together. He's as close. And then the other one is someone that we drove to North Carolina to New York. I don't know how many times that we just got to know each other. And I think when you're in a car, you got nothing else to talk about. So, him and I got really close.
But let me tell you a story about this, which I think you'll appreciate. I run therapy groups for men. And I started my first one about 12 years ago. And I remember standing in the room outside the room where the group was going to be and thinking, this is the worst idea I've ever had in my life. These guys are going to talk about sports. They're going to talk about work. It's going to be so superficial. I was 180 degrees wrong. The groups I do for men are the most intimate, the most committed. Within a couple of months, the members of that group were hugging at the end of the group, talking about how much they loved each other. And what I learned, which I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know, is all the stereotypes about men, not wanting to open up and are complete bullshit. Men are dying to talk to each other. They just are scared to do it in front of women.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
I didn't know that.
Now, do you feel like in those groups, as I'm hearing this, do you feel like the men become very protective of each other?
Oh yeah.
In that tribal sense of it, like, hey, I know what Dibs is going through. And if somebody even within the group were to say something like, hey man, that ain't right. He's got this going on.
I would say they're protective, but not to the point where it stops them from challenging each other.
Mm-hmm.
And saying to somebody, you can do better. The way you're talking to your wife is not working. You need to step it up. You need to be more open with her. You need to up your game. You need to be there.
And we're getting some great comments. Cujo is one of my close friends. It's Tom. Tom and I probably talk God, I couldn't tell you how many times a day we talk about something. Normally it's him sending me a Star Wars meme of some sort, but and me going, oh, I saw that one, or me telling him like, you need to go watch this show, or complaining about something. But we've had a lot of, and I've said it 100 times, he's a guy that through conversation has changed political views for me.
Yep.
But Dave Cannon, Dave says up until a few years ago, he had a few friends, including one woman he could talk to about anything. And that's amazing, because I'm thinking about it, as a young boy, there was one other boy that I could talk to. And even then it was difficult.
Well, that's the tragedy. Because the research shows us that boys' friendships with other boys are just as close as girls' friendships with other girls when they're boys, and that they're just as important to boys. But then we get talked out of it, and we get distracted by going off and conquering the world, and we forget about the importance of relationships until something happens in our lives when we get divorced, or we get sick, or we go bankrupt, and we really need somebody, and we look around and they're not there.
I mean, this is just it's wild to me. And you also talk in your book about in your research about divorce, which I've been divorced twice personally, and I'm going to tell you, this is going to piss a lot of men off. I would have to look at all the statistics on it and all the math and the numbers and all those kind of things. But I'm going to tell you, Doc, I cried bullshit when I read that men do financially better after a divorce than women do. Because me personally, I'm looking at it and thinking about the money that comes out of my pocket and friends' pockets. And, I used to work on the railroad where men have very good jobs, and you talk to a guy and he's like, yeah, I'm dropping $2,200 a month in child support for one kid. You're hearing these crazy numbers. And if you here in New York, the way the system is put together, it actually is designed where it's not financially beneficial for the person who's gaining child support to increase their station in life.
You're mixing together two things.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Am I mixing it? What am I missing here?
Well, I don't disagree with anything you've said, but it is still true that women's standard of living goes down after divorce and men's standard of living tends to go up. So that's just across everyone. So there's no question. I mean, divorce, you have to understand, divorce is a hardship for men and women, because you're taking, instead of two people, you're setting up two households. So nobody comes out of a divorce thinking they did well.
No.
Everybody comes out of the divorce feeling they got hosed. Men and women.
The only person who made out was the lawyer. The lawyer.
Yeah, right? That's true. The lawyers don't feel.
The lawyer's like, shit. Sorry about that, man.
Just keep getting lawyers, man.
As you get into your 2009 Kia with not a single piece of power equipment, and they roll off in their BMW 750 Li, and they're like, man, I did the best.
If you really want to look up sometime what percentage of women end up living below the poverty line after divorce. It's shocking.
Give me that number, Dibs.
I don't know the number, but it's
a
big number.
That's Dibs' job, Doc. That's Dibs' job. Can you throw that out?
I've got a new job now. I like it. I like it now that my squirrels are back to life.
They're back to life.
Them.
I told you, it's what happens when you're north of Canada.
And you have to. I think what happens is men often think about the money that they earn as their money, and so when women get child support, it feels to the guy like he's giving her money that's really his. But I would say what they're doing is they're sharing the responsibility of the children that they had together.
Oh, that's the whole thing. So,
that's good.
I can't talk because you're like
I feel like raw meat in the cage.
You really are, because I've gone down this road so many times, and I know New York State well enough where they say things like, hey, if she spends the entire child support on clothing for herself because That's enough. She needs that so that she can go to work to continue earning enough for their household. It's a whole thing. I don't want to get all into that, but
Yeah.
So what's because Dibs and I were talking about this earlier. Is there an age as parents that we should be looking out for our sons and daughters, I feel like, to kind of to pay attention, like, hey, this is that transition phase. Is it the puberty? Where does that phase start to transition in?
Sad to say, it looks to be around kindergarten, first grade. That
really that early.
Yeah.
Is there anything, I don't want to say preventing, but like, is there, like, obviously we're looking out for that change. I mean, is there, I don't know how to phrase it, like to
do it differently. The
Yeah.
problem is that most
go.
of it happens outside of our awareness. So if you have kids who play sports, right? So you go to a kid's soccer game. Let's say it's 7-year-old kids, 5-year-old, 7-year-old kids, and a boy falls down. I guarantee you that the parents will say some version of get up, get back in the game.
Yeah.
But even more importantly, what happens is if you watch the kid when he falls down, before he reacts, he'll look to the sideline to get his cue from his parents.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's that thing where they tell you, like, if you overreact when your kid falls down, that's why they tell you, like, if your kid falls down to something, like, laugh.
That's right.
Because
so with boys, we tend to say, get up, get back in there. And with girls, we tend to go, oh. And so we're right there. We're training the girls differently than we're training the boys. God, we don't even know we're doing it. We don't even realize we're doing it. But if you go to a game and you watch, you'll see the parents react differently when the girls get hurt than the boys get hurt.
Yep.
Because we were raised that way. And so it's very hard to not do it yourself.
Dave, I wasn't picking on your car, bro. I drove a 2007 Nissan Titan up until a year ago, till the wheels fell off of that thing. Drive it till it falls apart. Nobody can afford cars no more. I don't blame you one bit. But now, devil's advocate again. I got to be devil's advocate with some of this. Going back to I love that you use the term traditional instead of toxic.
Yes.
But don't we need for men, because of there are times when we, culturally we are expected to provide that traditional male.
The difference is it's about rigidity versus flexibility. So ideally, everybody would be able to develop all parts of themselves. And so the healthy person is the person who can step up and be strong and traditional sometimes and be open and vulnerable and intimate other times. The problem comes when we, there's the expression, the man box, when we say this is how men are and you're not allowed to be outside of that, that's when it becomes a problem. So it's not that there's anything wrong with traditional men. Look, if I'm going to war, I want a traditionally masculine guy at the head of my platoon. I don't want to stop and talk about my feelings, right? But then
I'm not feeling this, war. I'm not feeling it.
Right. But then after, when we get back to base camp and I lost my best friend, then I don't want to be a tough, stoic asshole. I want to have a friend I can talk to about it.
There is a phenomenal book I will recommend, and I don't know if you ever read it or not, Dib. Shadow of the Sword. Did you ever get a chance, Doc? Did you read it, Dibs?
Yep.
This is exactly what you're talking about, Doc, for us.
Yeah.
Is Shadow of the Sword. He was I can't remember if he's a Flying Cross or Bronze Star with a V winner. Might even been a Silver Star, but goes through, saves all these other Marines, does all these things, and never communicates his trauma, of the experiences, and goes down a very deep, dark hole, and almost ruins an entire career, a wife, kids, everything. So,
and that's actually not how war was always fought. There's a wonderful book called Achilles in Vietnam. And it's written by a guy who's a psychiatrist and a classics scholar. And he talks about war in the time of Achilles and Agamemnon. And the way they fought a battle then was they fought during the day. And then when it got close to dark, the fighting stopped and each side went out. And if your friend was wounded or killed, you brought your friend back behind the lines and you cared for him or cleaned his body before burying him. The combat stopped and people tended to the emotional wounds of combat. Then they went back the next day and started the war again. It's how it used to go. And he makes, Robert Bly, the big men's rights guy?
Yes.
Bly wrote an article about this before he was a poet and all that. And he said what changed it all was the helicopter. Because before the helicopter, when somebody yelled charge, when the officer in charge yelled charge, he was in the front of the line.
Yep.
And the helicopter meant that he could be up there and tell you to charge while he sat in a safe distance.
So true. God, that's so true. How many times on a patrol did you ever see a colonel, right up there with you?
But it used to be. That's how it used to be.
You don't, and that's why you get things like you get movies like We Were Soldiers, where I think he was a colonel in that thing, where first boots on the ground and last boots. Like, it's such a rarity that that's the type of leader you want. And it's such a rarity to see it, and then you don't see it anymore. And if you do, then they get their silver stars with V's, they get their all that stuff, and it's
right.
It's very different. So how do we? So and maybe I'm asking the great question that doesn't have quite an answer yet here.
Yes.
So how do we make that transition or create that bridge where we can still have those traditional, like I can't even, maybe you got one, Dibs. Like, I don't know of maybe Liam Neeson would be like the only Hollywood character that I could think of where, he is the strong traditional male character in so many movies, but also has like the loving side, like, cause it ain't John Wayne.
Right.
No,
it's not the Duke.
But you make a really good point. That would certainly be part of changing it, would be putting figures out there in the public who do have both sides, who do show both sides of their personality. I think there are two fundamental things we need to do to change things. One is that we need to help find ways for men to talk with men. And one of the things I do in the book, which I'm really pleased with, is there's a chapter for men who might want to learn how to talk to other men about how to get together with a group of guys and start talking about some of these things with very sort of concrete step-by-step ideas about how to do that. So I think that's one.
See, as you say that, like, I get not like a shudder, but it just gives me this, like, there's no way in hell, like there's I will talk to this person,
well, you can ease into it. It's less threatening if you start it as a book group. So this is self-serving, of course, but what I suggest to people is buy the book and start a book group and start by talking about the book, and that will open into more personal conversation.
Dave, send me a private message after this is all over with. I got something for you. And Tom says, you're one of the best guests I've ever had.
Thanks.
Good job. Thank you, Tom.
But let me tell you the second thing that has to happen. And this will surprise you. Because it's a simple thing, but it would change the world. Men have to be equal parents. Men have to be as involved emotionally. So then boys would not have all their eggs in one basket with their mom. They'd have two equal attachments to their mom and their dad, and they wouldn't be as scared about their mom abandoning them because they would have their dad who they should be just as close to. And that is a simple but world-changing. So one of the things I recommend to couples with young kids is I tell them, okay, mom is going out of town for the weekend. And she's not allowed to set up a babysitter, cook meals in advance, set up play dates. She's not allowed to help in any way, shape, or form. She's just going away for the weekend with friends, whatever she wants to do. And the dad has to figure it out. And men are kind of afraid to figure it out because their wives are always watching and supervising and correcting. But if she goes away for the weekend, so when my wife went away, I used to call them beer and pizza weekends. You know, it's like I didn't worry about cooking. I didn't worry about cleaning. I just focused. And then what happens, of course, is, you know, we're not stupid. We're not incapable. You figure it out. So maybe you didn't know how to get your kids to sleep because your wife always did it. But if you got them alone for the weekend, you will figure out how to get the kids to sleep your way. And then, of course, when your wife comes back, you have to figure out, because she'll do it her way and you'll do it. But that is, again, a radical, life-changing thing to do.
So with that, like, I mean, if you, like, we talked a little bit about child support, we talked about some other stuff. Like, have you ever worked within the courts with any of that stuff? I mean, because you made the statement of the father being more present, like being more there. And we see so many times when a divorce happens that there still are so many, what I'll call mother-friendly states that kind of basically treat the dad as a second-class citizen, as a deadbeat, is that type of thing. And I mean, and I think that's hard for, I think guys, at least I know I've had it always in the back of my head during that process, is no matter what I do, no matter how present I am in this with the kids, that if it comes down to it and there's a divorce, I'm not like, I'm going to lose.
That might be true, but you're not going to like this. I'm going to put it back on you. The tighter you are with your kids, the closer you are, the less likely that is to happen. If you go into a divorce situation and your kids are just as attached to you as they are to their mom, when the guardian ad litem interviews the kids, they're going to say, I got to be with my dad. You can't take me away from my dad. So men, in a sense, we are part of we complain a lot about it, but we are part of creating that situation by not putting in the work. I work with, hopefully he's not listening to this interview because I'm betraying his confidence, but it's 30 years ago. So hopefully he's not listening. But he was, it was a completely not involved dad. And he was in a very ugly divorce. And he said to me, geez, I don't know, my wife's talking about me only having custody, every other weekend. And what would that be like? And I said, without thinking, I said, yeah, that would really be a big increase in the amount of time you spent with your kids, which would have been. The truth is, it would have been. And so he's not missing his kids. He's just involved in a power struggle with his wife. But the fact of the matter is, if he spent every other weekend with his kids, it would be way more connection with them than he had when he was married.
It's just, it's interesting. You use that term power struggle. I wonder how much when we talk about these kind of things is just that.
Yeah.
Because we are competitive in nature, how much of it is for men? Is it just,
it's
you're not
the
taking
problem
more
is
time away
being
from
competitive in a relationship doesn't work well because you really don't want your partner to be, you don't want to lose and you don't want your partner to lose. It's not a good feeling to defeat somebody that you love and planning on living with. And so it's not a good model for intimate relationships. There's no real room for competition. It really has to be collaborative. What I tell couples is, you can't, when you have a disagreement, you're not done talking until you have a solution that both people feel good about. And if you haven't found that yet, you're not done. You can't win an argument.
And I want to, Dave just threw this up, and I think this is an example. Find your group where you can find them for men. It doesn't matter where it is.
Anywhere. Church, OA. Yeah, absolutely.
He found his through OA.
Yeah.
About sharing very personal experiences. And I think food for a lot of us becomes that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not drugs. It's not alcohol. I just love good food. I just really enjoy good food.
Right.
I want to eat, and it's a barricade. It's a barricade for your feelings.
Can be. Yeah.
So the next question then is, can an individual who, I know you're talking about open up about our feelings and getting into that, but can a leopard change his spot?
Absolutely. So
Like,
we haven't talked much about women, so let's bring them in the conversation.
Please.
I did a workshop for men and women, and it was an unusual format. We met for 2 days, and then we didn't meet again for 4 months, and we met for 2 more days. And what was interesting was the women had made more changes in their relationships than the men over those 4 months. And the reason is that it was life-changing for the women, because when their partners are withdrawing and entrenching and getting defensive, women interpret that as a power struggle. They're pulling my chain. They're just trying to jerk me around. When they understand that that withdrawal is because the man is intimidated and overwhelmed, it changes and softens their whole perspective. So let me read you a quote from a woman at the second meeting of that group. So this is, a real person. She said, I understand that my husband has not been ignoring, dismissing, or hurting me out of a lack of respect, as I assumed he had been, but that he's scared of me. He's scared to hurt me. He's scared to mess up with me. He's scared to not be enough. And I'd honestly never imagined that he was scared and that I was so profoundly important to him that he was constantly terrified I would leave him. So this work and this book can be as life-changing for women. And so what some couples are doing, which I think is great, is they buy the book and they read a chapter at a time. And then they read chapter 1 and then they talk about it. They don't read ahead. Then they read chapter 2 and they talk about it. And the reason it really helps, women they find us a complete mystery. And so they're dying to read something that helps them understand their partner. And so they read the book together and the guys are saying, right there, chapter 3, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Yeah, that's what it's like for me. And they're like, oh, okay, I get, it gives language for the men to explain to their partners what's going on with them. And it's a very powerful thing to read it together. So it's a great Christmas gift for your partner.
Well, and we can all find now. Is that Christmas gift available on your website, Doc?
You can find the link on the website or just go to Amazon and you'll find it.
Because I was going to ask, is this hidden in plain sight?
Yes.
Or is it,
so
yes, that's
hidden in plain sight?
Okay.
How men's fears of women shape their intimate relationships.
Okay, because I wasn't sure, because you've got hidden in plain sight, living and loving mutually, change happens, and experimental
psychotherapy. Oh, the other thing, by the way, is if you go to the website, so I write a lot of columns online for Psychology Today. If you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get all those columns and you'll get a free ebook.
Hey. But
love it.
I mean, the stuff we're talking about here, I mean, I always felt like, and I've like, women are very open. You said it, because they're taught to care about their feelings. They're taught that those things matter. They're taught to be in touch and to carry those emotions. What are some of the, and I want to kind of get this little hint from you, because you said there's a chapter inside the book about for men to kind of get into these things. But what are some of the biggest barriers? And in my mind, I think it's me, for men to go and join one of these groups. And I'll make it twofold. What's one of the barriers for joining it? And do you think it's better for men to join a group or to do one-on-one?
I think, when I work with men, I work with them individually and then I put them in a group. And I do that just to sort of help them get warmed up and opened up to where they're ready to be in a group. I very rarely start someone in a group, but the biggest obstacle for men is fear. The biggest obstacle is that they'll be found out, that other guys will realize. Go ahead.
Absolutely. When you were just talking about, like you were saying, when you were saying, like, oh no, like immediately I got nervous.
Yeah,
like,
your sphincter
100% inside of me. I'm like, no, like that has no appeal to me, right? I'm just gonna let the squirrels die so that I can log off real quick before I throw up in my mouth.
I have an entire career of working with men exactly like you. I have a practice full of guys who never in a million years imagined that they would ever talk to a therapist, and now it's a really important part of their lives. My men's groups, one of my men's groups, I go to a conference 3 times a year, Wednesday through Sunday, and the group was meeting on Thursdays, and the group changed the meeting day to get 3 more meetings a year.
Wow.
See, that's awesome. And I consider myself and maybe I'm like some other guys, but I consider myself fairly like hard on my sleeve. Like I can talk about stuff and all that, but just the thought, like thinking about it. Yeah. It just, no.
I think you'll find that within the first 30 minutes that would change.
Yeah.
And I get like a horrible person
because it feels so good.
Yeah.
I just had one of my oldest friends here, probably friends for 40 years. And, we just sat and talked for hours and hours and hours, and it was wonderful. It's just it's different talking to a man than it is talking to a woman.
We understand each other. And it's so funny that bringing it back full circle to the beginning of the show, as Dibbs was saying that, you talked about when I made the joke with my wife, hey, we make a joke about things we're scared of. Dibbs is really opening up and saying this. And the first thing that came to mind to me was like, it's because you're a bitch, because I was going to make fun of him.
Right. Exactly.
I
was only going to do that because
you're uncomfortable.
Right.
Because you're nervous.
Damn, so you got to embrace this. You got to embrace this. You got to embrace this suck. Got it.
I wanted to call the book, but they wouldn't let me. Pussy Whipped.
Why wouldn't they? That book would have sold 1 billion copies just because.
I wanted to call it Pussy Whipped. And right in the first chapter, I posed the question that says, Pussy Whipped, why is it that the worst insult one man can say about another, think about it, it's that you need a woman, that's the most insulting thing one man can say to another, is that he needs a woman.
Absolutely.
Because it's crazy, because of course it's true. And so we're shaming people and humiliating them for something that's true.
I'm better with my wife. 100% promise you that I'm better with my wife.
Well, I'm happy for you. That's great.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even looking at that, like you were just saying, Sean, like to automatically want to say like something. So, and just the guy, so I'm in a group with 4 other Marines that we've all been like really good friends through all that. And when we all say like love you to each other, but there's always some connotation at the end of it, like, oh, love you, asshole, like just something. Because I feel like if we didn't say that, like that's that negative aspect that it's so ingrained, especially being military, into our bodies.
The guys in my groups look each other in the eyes and say, I love you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is huge. Like that is such a.
I've always been an I love you. But see,
so have I, yeah.
Now, going back, God, because Doc, I could talk to you for hours. I don't know how much time you got, but like this is like one of those most fascinating. I'm having my own group session right now. And
it is opening night of the NBA season. I'm going to watch the Hawks game, so we got to stop at some point.
Hey, you know what? You should come and visit us in Albany, because one of your former #1 draft picks went to Shen High School.
What
was the redheaded kid's name?
Kevin Herter.
Yeah, he went to Shen High School.
Okay.
Right here locally,
right down the road.
Yeah, like
nobody post on the score of the game on this scroll here. Don't anybody give away the score here.
You won't get the score on the scroll. Okay. So we've got the 4 books that people can find, and they're on your website. And I'm going to spell the website because I know we were joking about how I butcher names, and it's nothing personal. Everyone knows it, but it's avrumweiss.phd.com. You can find all Doc's stuffs on there. You can find his books on there. You can also find him on LinkedIn under Avrum. Avrum? Did I get it right?
Avrum.
Avrum. Like Avrum Levine. Why can't somebody just say like Avrum Levine? Look, and I love this. No one wins. This will sit with me. Absolutely, Dibs or Tom. But I'll
take credit for his comment.
Yeah, Avrum Weiss on LinkedIn. You can find Doc there. You can reach out to him. If you're in Maine, almost in Canada, you can find him there.
I'll tell you.
You only need a seaplane. You only need a seaplane, a boat,
you do have to
a
take
compass, and the crystal
I will
skull.
tell you
And
one
you'll
thing
find him.
I'm very proud of. I answer every email.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
If you email me and you don't hear back, there's only one explanation. I didn't get your email, or I died.
Well, let's go with the email. Let's go with the email aspect first, Doc. Let's go with that one.
Like,
but I just hate it when I email people and they don't answer me. And so I've promised myself, and I will answer. I mean, I won't just give you some three-word answer. If you ask me a question, I'll answer it.
I mean, I really hope that every man that listens to this, picks up the phone and calls another dude that you consider as your friend.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
And just call them and say, and it's interesting because I'm not going to put out who, but I have someone who's extremely close to me, and I always, because I feel this way about them, I always every time, hey, I love you, and they will never say it back because it's a man thing, and they've got, and I say it all the time, and maybe after hearing this, they'll start realizing that I come from my father, even though with the last name of Murphy, we come from an Italian household. My grandma was the first person. And I always felt like our household was a very loving household. Like, especially my grandmother, men kissed each other. We didn't care about that. That wasn't a big deal. You hugged each other. It wasn't a big deal. It's just so incredible. Doc, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Like I said, I feel like
another interview. We'll do it again.
We're going to have to do this again.
It's awesome. I mean, it's even when you said like to think, like go and think through your friends. I think it's a good opportunity to really think through who you consider friends. Cause I know there's a lot of people that I'm like, oh yeah, like, it's definitely my friend. And then I sit there and like, maybe an acquaintance, like, and it's not someone that I could have that conversation with. So I think this is a good thing. One, to really evaluate how you do feel, but two, to find really who your inner circle is. Like they say, as you grow, your inner circle shrinks.
Yeah, and I think that's
true.
I think what Sean's saying is important too, which is not just to identify, but then to maybe stretch it a little, to push the border a little bit and be a little more, try being a little more open and seeing, because every man I talk to says, oh, I'd really like to have a close male friend, but none of the other guys are interested. Well, they can't all be I think there are a lot of men who are interested, but they just don't know that other guys are interested too.
Yep, absolutely.
And so Doc, do you have any other upcoming tours? I know you said you do a lot of conferences.
I'll tell you something I'm doing that people might be interested in. And again, email me if you are. I'm doing a workshop. I'm just starting to do it for men and women on helping men and women understand each other better. And the format of the workshop is, you guys, I don't know if you remember this TV show, but you remember the TV show, The Newlywed Game?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I use this format of the Newlywed Game, and I ask questions about relationships of the men and the women, and I have them write their answers down. And then I ask the man what they think women think, and of course they're wrong. And then I ask women what they think men think, and of course they're wrong. And so it's a fun way of learning about each other more and understanding what makes us tick.
That's incredible. That's so awesome.
It's fun.
You need to connect them with
any group of people anywhere. That doesn't have to be, they're not therapists or whatever, just, at a church or a Lions Club or anywhere.
Well, we would love to have you in the
Albany. I can drive to Albany. I just have to get the boat first. So
you got to get the boat to get across to everything.
Rent a room and get some people together, and we'll have some fun.
I think I know the church that I belong to, I think would love it, because it's one of the only ones that I've ever been part of. We actually have men's
that's great. That's great.
That get together and they do stuff. And
I'm zooming into a men's group at a synagogue in a few weeks. I'm really looking forward to it. They contacted me, and I'm going to come in, join one of their meetings on Zoom. So I'll be happy to come.
That would be amazing. You and I will stay in touch. I'll
Sounds good.
Be in contact with the right people. I think this would be amazing. So we've got that. We've got the four books. Everybody needs to go buy at least 4 copies of each book, so that Doc can get that seaplane that we keep joking around about.
But you don't know anything about publishing if you think that selling books makes money.
Oh no. We just recently had a guy on who published like 8 books. He did the guys, and I'm I can't remember the name right now. He actually interviewed. Do you remember back in the 70s, the guy that disappeared for over a year and then just like reappeared?
So yeah.
Can't think of his name. We actually interviewed the guy we interviewed was Dylan Quarles. Has a book coming out where he actually interviewed the guy. He knew where he was at, but he talks about the publishing of it and how these publishing houses, he's like, unless you know somebody or you're somehow famously related, they won't even talk to you.
No, it's true. Most of the way I reach people is like this. It's why I do these interviews, because people don't read.
Yeah, and Doc, you are incredible. I definitely look forward to keeping this going along.
Sounds good.
Make sure, again, everybody gets out there and gets Doc's stuff, reads up on it. Please, nobody give him the score for the Hawks game. Who they opening a season against?
They're playing. I knew until you asked me, of course. Houston. They'll win.
Yeah, I don't think Houston's got anybody anymore. Those
They
days,
don't.
there's days of Houston. There's always a great thing about basketball that Jim Rome said. Basketball is like one of the only sports you only need one, no more than two superstars on a team and a bunch of role players, and you can win an NBA championship.
I hope so.
That's all. That's all you need.
Yeah,
who the Hawks got now? Who the Hawks got now?
Well, they got Trae Young.
Yeah. There's a superstar right there for you. So, again, folks, if you're liking what you're hearing, you're liking what you're seeing, make sure you subscribe to all the locations where we're at: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, all of them, even our email, the Above the Bar podcast. Make sure you send us a sticker. Go search out Dibs, give him a follow. If you're looking for your media to get better, remember, if you tell him belly up to the bar, he's going to give you a 10% discount on your first order on your media and a free consultation. So make sure you're reaching out to Dibs. Dibs, you got anything coming up everybody needs to know about? Anything going on with the Gaylord Snow?
Yeah, Gaylord Snow season kicks off this weekend. We're away, and then first home game's the 29th. So we've got some. So funny enough, one of our players is actually the former CEO of the Dollar Beard Club, Dollar Shave Club. One of them, Chris Stoikos. Yeah, he's on Shark Tank and stuff. Quietest guy. Here you go. Quietest guy. Like never, but is the most like receptive. Like would come up and like give me a hug. Like, oh hey, what's up, dude? Like nicest guy in the world, but you would never think of it. But yeah, so no, our season kicks off. Yeah, so follow the snow. It'll be a good season.
All right, Doc. Don't log off right away because I got to talk to you for 1 second afterwards. But we have one rule on the show: the guest always gets the last
word.
Always.
My last word is an appreciation for you guys. Anytime I see men speaking in a real way with each other, I feel like that's the work. I feel like that's what we need to be doing, and it can happen a lot of different ways. So kudos to you guys. You know, having real conversations between men is really what we need to be doing.
All righty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.